A balcony wave looks effortless, 5 seconds of grace that can melt cynicism in a crowd. Yet behind that moment hums an entire unseen machine. Airspace restrictions, encrypted radios, facial recognition alerts, and officers tracking micro-movements with military precision. In 2025, Britain's threat map shifted. For the first time, analysts described the risk to the monarchy as persistently high but diffuse. No single enemy, just layers of unpredictability, fixated individuals, misinformation surges, cheap drones, digital leaks, and crowds whose mood can pivot with one post. Royal security planners call it the age of fragmented risk. It demands a new kind of math, less bodyguard instinct, more data-driven psychology. Every handshake is a risk calculation. Every venue becomes a behavioral experiment. And yet the crown's magic relies on being seen. That tension, visibility versus vulnerability, is the monarchy's most delicate balancing act today. From muscle to modeling, the architecture of protection. For most of the 20th century, protection meant muscle. The armed guard, the cordon, the car. Today it means modeling, predictive algorithms, sentiment tracking, and scenario drills that resemble flight simulators more than watchtowers. Inside the Metropolitan Police's Protection Command, known as SO14 and RASP, officers rotate through psychology briefings, crowd emotion monitoring, and open-source intelligence labs. They still train in firearms and defensive driving, but their most powerful tool is pattern recognition. Their motorcade partners, the Special Escort Group, weave that model into motion. When a royal vehicle moves through London, its route is not just mapped, it's war-gamed. GPS data, traffic flow, and social media check-ins create a digital shadow route designed to divert attention from the real one. The philosophy is simple. Security must anticipate emotion as much as violence. Analysts review crowd energy, weather, and news sentiment before each appearance. A day of bad headlines means extra screening points. A Jubilee-like mood might allow closer interaction. It sounds clinical, but to RASP, it's empathy by design, using data to read the national mood before the royals step into it. The Windsor Crossbow and the system shock. Then came the wake-up call. Christmas morning, 2021. A masked man armed with a crossbow entered Windsor Castle grounds. He reached within hundreds of meters of the Queen's private quarters before arrest. The weapon was lethal at close range. His motive mingled terror fantasy with revenge delusion. He was later charged under the Treason Act of 1842, a law last used in Victorian times. The incident sent shockwaves through the security community. If a single intruder with basic gear could breach Windsor, what about modern drones or coordinated protests? Patrol patterns changed overnight. Thermal imaging sensors and motion-triggered alarms expanded into the surrounding parkland. A new term entered the lexicon: elastic perimeter. An elastic perimeter means that boundaries flex based on context. When the royals are home, it stretches miles out. When they're away, it contracts. This fluidity keeps threat actors guessing and spreads defense beyond walls. The crossbow case also reshaped public debate. Should the UK regulate crossbows like firearms? Should private estates enjoy quasi-military protection levels? The answers aren't settled, but policy momentum moved toward tighter controls and deeper coordination between local police and palace security. The science of fixation. Mind is battleground. Not every threat carries a weapon. Many carry a belief. Since 2006, the Fixated Threat Assessment Centre, FTAC, has operated quietly as Britain's most innovative security experiment, a fusion of detectives and psychiatrists tasked with detecting dangerous obsession before it erupts. Each year, FTAC handles close to 1,000 referrals. Roughly half are benign. The rest undergo clinical evaluation and management. In most cases, treatment and support, not arrest, diffuse risk. That success rate is astonishing. Studies suggest a 70% drop in recidivism after intervention. The pandemic multiplied their workload. Isolation, online radicalization, and paranoid echo chambers created new fixations. Messages once sent by letter now arrived as live-stream rants or encrypted voice notes. Each one needed triage. Was it delusion, desperation, or design? For royal planners, FTAC's intelligence feeds directly into event design. If a person of concern lives near a public route, officers may alter the order of carriages or swap arrival times by minutes. Security today is microscopic. A shift in a schedule can mean the difference between safety and incident. From ceremony to cybernetics, the tech dimension. Behind the scenes, cybersecurity is the new royal frontier. Social media monitoring teams scrape millions of posts daily, looking for unusual spikes around royal keywords. Artificial intelligence filters sort harmless fan excitement from coordinated hostility. Even motorcades run on digital shielding. Convoy vehicles emit jamming signals that block GPS tracking apps and disable crowdsourced traffic feeds like Waze. At major events, temporary geo-blackouts protect the exact royal position for the few minutes between checkpoints. Drones remain the obsession of every briefing. Civilian models can carry HD cameras or payloads of several hundred grams, enough for surveillance or disruption. To combat them, the CAA enforces temporary flight restriction zones. Within them, air patrols and radio frequency detectors monitor the sky. The coronation of King Charles III saw Britain's largest ever anti-drone operation. 40-plus incursions detected, all neutralized. Officers described it as three-dimensional policing. Streets below, airspace above, data in between. This fusion of human and digital defense marks the real shakedown of modern royal security. It's less about bodyguards and more about systems thinking, where data, psychology, and technology interlock to protect the most visible family in the world, the Harry Precedent, privilege rewritten. Few stories illustrate the new philosophy better than the Duke of Sussex case. After stepping back from official duties, Prince Harry lost automatic entitlement to state-funded security. He contested the decision, arguing his risk profile remained unchanged. Same public exposure, same threat chatter. In 2025, Britain's Court of Appeal disagreed. Protection, judges said, follows function, not family. Inside RAVEC, the committee that allocates VIP protection, the ruling triggered months of policy rewriting. Spreadsheets of royal movements became live databases scored by risk index. Each journey now undergoes a fresh matrix. Location volatility, media exposure, duration, crowd size. If the sum exceeds threshold, armed escort deploys. If not, private security fills the gap. The legal battle also sparked a broader conversation about entitlement and equity. Should public resources protect a private individual whose status derives from heritage? Or should heritage itself constitute permanent risk? The answer will shape policy long after the case is forgotten. Counting the uncountable, the cost and the secrecy. How much does royal security cost? Officially, nobody knows. Unofficially, analysts estimate between 100 and 120 million pounds per year in policing, equipment, and coordination. Yet in 2024, a tribunal confirmed the Home Office is not obliged to publish figures. Transparency, they ruled, could endanger life by revealing capacity and deployment levels. That secrecy creates an ethical paradox. Democracy thrives on accountability, but accountability thrives on information. The Crown sits between its safety, a public duty funded by taxpayers, its details locked for safety. Security professionals argue that budget opacity is not a luxury, but a layer of defense. If adversaries don't know the numbers, they can't infer weak spots. Campaigners reply that without scrutiny, overspend and mission creep are inevitable. The debate remains unsolved, and probably unsolvable, because in the end, certainty itself can be weaponized. Beyond the fences, the elastic future. If you walk around Windsor Great Park today, you'll notice subtle changes. Rerouted footpaths, increased surveillance poles, and signs citing restricted access for operational reasons. Locals call them inconveniences. Officers call them defensible space. It symbolizes the direction of modern royal protection. No longer a fixed ring around palaces, but a flexible ecosystem that extends into digital and geographic domains. Every security review asks the same question. How far from the throne does the Crown's duty to protect reach? That's the question we'll explore next. How the law, technology, and public expectation are reshaping what safety means for a family whose brand is accessibility. Because the real shakedown isn't just tactical, it's philosophical. The geography of risk, no-go zones and public friction. Security once ended at the palace gates, not anymore. In 2025, the Crown Estate quietly redrew access maps around Windsor Great Park. 60 hectares of woodland and footpaths that had been open for generations were redesignated restricted for operational safety. Local joggers were furious. Dog walkers called it Royal Land Grab 2.0. Officials called it defensible zoning, a term borrowed from counter-terror planning. The new idea, security, doesn't mean building higher walls. It means reshaping terrain until danger has to take the long way round. These zones aren't fortresses, they're algorithms drawn on maps. They flex with intelligence, wider during sensitive periods like royal birthdays or global summits, narrower on quiet weeks. The public only sees a new fence, the analysts see risk curves flattening. But with each expansion, criticism grows. How safe is safe enough before heritage sites become high-security bubbles? That debate between access and assurance will define how Britain experiences its monarchy in the next decade. The law catches up. Martin's Law and the culture of preparedness. April 2025 brought the most important piece of counter-terror legislation in years, the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act, better known as Martin's Law. Named for Martin Hett, who died in the Manchester Arena attack, it requires every venue above 200 capacity to create a written security plan, train staff, and stage annual drills. For royal organizers, this changed everything. Banquets, investitures, charity concerts. If guests exceed the threshold, the venue must meet statutory readiness. Suddenly, palace staff found themselves running tabletop simulations, issuing emergency cards, and learning acronyms, once confined to police briefings. Critics feared red tape. Supporters saw cultural shift. In truth, it's both. Britain is normalizing the idea that security is everyone's job. The Crown's endorsement of that idea, by publicly complying, signals that even the oldest institution is not above modern accountability. The drone dilemma, a sky that can't be policed forever. Look up at any royal event today and you'll see nothing. That's the point. Above the parade route, invisible digital fences hum across the sky. Geofencing software blocks hobbyist drones from GPS lock. Radar domes on rooftops triangulate intruders. Counter-UAS rifles stand ready to jam or net rogue craft. During the King's coronation, more than 40 drone incursions were logged and neutralized. The public never noticed. Officers called it a flawless air choreography. But tech has limits. Low-cost drones can switch GPS modules, fly pre-programmed, or operate on frequencies outside jamming bands. Each innovation forces another upgrade. The Royal Security Directorate now runs an arms race budget line called Adaptive Countermeasures Fund. Millions set aside for constant software refresh. Then there's the privacy fallout. Anti-drone sensors inevitably capture ordinary photography drones and hobbyists. Campaigners worry that temporary no-fly zones risk becoming permanent digital shadows over public parks. Yet for planners, a single untracked drone is a nightmare scenario. Moving camera, uncertain payload, no accountability. The balance remains brutally asymmetric. One intruder versus an entire command chain. The new tactics of unpredictability. Royal walkabouts used to follow clockwork precision. Published route, predictable arrival, small talk, bouquet, exit. Those days are gone. Now, unpredictability itself is the plan. Times shift by minutes. Convoy compositions vary. Advanced cars swap plates mid-route. Decoy schedules circulate deliberately online to mislead stalkers. Local officers sometimes don't know which gate the royal will enter until seconds beforehand. The system borrows from Project Servitor, a counter-terror policing doctrine built on unpredictable, highly visible deployments. Officers appear where least expected. Train stations, shopping districts, palace approaches. The goal is psychological. Deter surveillance by being unscripted. Crowds sense it as energy rather than structure. They see more officers, more dogs, more last-minute direction changes. They feel spontaneity, but behind that spontaneity lies choreography tighter than any dance company. The numbers game. Counting what can't be seen. How many people guard the Royals? Official figures are secret, but insiders speak of a core cadre of roughly 200 specialist officers rotating across shifts, backed by thousands more during major events. Each officer can cost upwards of £100,000 per year when training and overtime are included. Add cyber teams, transport escorts, intelligence analysts, aviation units, and the total annual spend easily surpasses 9 figures. But none of it appears line by line in public budgets. Even Parliament only receives aggregated protective services headings. Supporters argue that secrecy saves lives. Detractors counter that it undermines accountability, especially when taxpayers foot the bill. The paradox is permanent. The more transparent the system becomes, the less secure it feels. The human factor. Training for the unthinkable. Despite satellites and sensors, the last barrier is still human judgment. Protection officers drill constantly. Simulated ambushes, crowd surges, chemical attack scenarios, even information attacks, where false tweets trigger crowd panic. One exercise, nicknamed Operation Crescent, rehearses simultaneous threats at 2 royal venues, forcing command to divide assets in real time. The goal isn't perfection, it's resilience under overload. Psychological resilience training has expanded too. Officers rotate through counseling sessions after major operations. The strain of vigilance, hours scanning faces, fingers resting near triggers, can quietly corrode mental health. Modern protection treats well-being as strategic infrastructure. Burnt-out officers make bad decisions. The soft power dimension, security as diplomacy. Royal security isn't just defense, it's optics. Every overseas visit doubles as geopolitical theater. A single slip, a protester breaching a cordon, a vehicle delay, translates into headlines that can embarrass allies. That's why Royal Advance teams now embed liaison officers months before tours. They coordinate with host governments, local intelligence, and sometimes private contractors. For example, before the 2023 Caribbean tour, British planners worked with regional police to test crowd flow sensors and mobile barriers designed to blend with colonial architecture. It was risk mitigation disguised as heritage preservation. Even gift exchanges are risk assessed. Metals checked for contamination, artifacts scanned for hidden electronics. Security, in other words, extends to diplomacy's minutiae because prestige and protection travel together. The digital front, information as threat. In 2024, the National Cybersecurity Centre quietly expanded its Royal Household Liaison team. The reason? Attempted spear phishing against palace accounts spiked 40% year-on-year. Hackers seek itinerary drafts, flight manifests, internal phone numbers, anything that narrows opportunity windows. To counter this, the Palace IT department now runs under ISO 27001 security protocols, complete with simulated phishing drills for staff. Even personal assistants receive quarterly briefings on deepfake audio risks. The bigger worry is hybrid threat, misinformation campaigns that erode public trust. Imagine a falsified video of a royal remark going viral hours before a state visit. The physical threat might still be zero, but reputational damage could trigger protests requiring real-world policing. That's why cyber defense is now fused with physical protection. Threat assessments rank online volatility alongside terrorism metrics. In the digital era, a trending hashtag can be as dangerous as a bullet. The ethical tightrope. Liberty versus safety. Every innovation comes with an ethical echo. Behavioral analytics blur consent boundaries. Drone jammers affect nearby civilians. Facial recognition risks profiling bias. Civil liberties groups argue that royal protection is becoming a testbed for intrusive tech that could later spread to ordinary policing. Security chiefs reply that they operate under judicial oversight and necessity tests. Both are correct and both incomplete. The uncomfortable truth: a system that protects symbols of continuity must itself evolve faster than the society it represents. That tension between modern efficiency and constitutional restraint may prove harder to manage than any protester or drone. Looking ahead, the next frontier. So where does royal security go from here? Analysts foresee 3 fronts. Predictive AI, machine learning tools that fuse weather, traffic, and social data to forecast crowd density hour by hour. Bio-ID gating, access control using facial heat signatures and heartbeat variants, replacing manual passes. Integrated civil defense, public volunteers trained under Martin's Law standards, forming community response networks around major venues. Each promises speed and safety, and each raises new privacy puzzles. But the trajectory is clear. Intelligence first, muscle second. The monarchy that once survived assassins with sabers will now survive algorithms with dashboards. The philosophy of visibility. Royal survival depends on connection. Hide completely and you become irrelevant. Open completely and you become vulnerable. The art lies in controlled openness, appearing spontaneous while remaining protected. Security chiefs sometimes call it the theater of reassurance. The public sees poise. The system feels pressure. The illusion works because both sides play their part. Citizens trust the safety curtain. The curtain never admits how thick it is. That paradox keeps Britain's constitutional story alive. The royals stand visible precisely because they are so carefully unseen. Closing reflection. Every wave, every balcony smile, every garden handshake exists because somewhere, invisible, a network of humans and machines decided the risk was acceptable. Royal security isn't a fortress. It's a negotiation with chaos. And as threats evolve from bullets to bytes, from trespassers to trolls, that negotiation will never truly end. The Crown's greatest weapon, as it turns out, is not secrecy or strength. It's adaptability.